My name is Emmy Nixon, and you're listening to the Raw Prospect Podcast, Mavericks Miniseries, Episode 1. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the Raw Prospect Podcast. My name is Emmy Nixon. I'm excited to start something new today. It's going to be a long series where we cover every single Mavericks game. I've been looking forward to doing this for something like this for a long time. I actually did one episode of a series like this for the Cowboys, but I didn't stick to that. Once that episode happened, I didn't watch another Cowboys game for a few weeks. I didn't enjoy watching them simply. just I had homework to do, and it wasn't worth the stress, basically. But this is going to be similar to that in the sense that I'm just going to cover every single Mavericks game from the past week. I'm gonna have this episode come out every Sunday. So hopefully y'all will get behind this. Hopefully, because I know I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it. This is a team that I've always been really passionate about, even when we were not very good. I've always been a diehard fan. I tried to be. I've tried to watch every game that I could, and now that I'm able to get League Pass and watch every game, I want to be able to cover that and talk about what I feel. So I'm currently recording this before the Suns game, the first night of the season. And I'm just going to be talking about what I expect from the game. And this is just going to be what I'm going to try to do for each week of the season, try to cover every single game. I'm just going to cover the Suns game for right now because I'm actually going to be going to my dad's in a little bit. I'm not going to cover the Lakers game. Hopefully I'll be able to cover that after that game happens. But I'm just going to get into it. I'm rambling a little bit too much. So the Suns, they added Chris Paul, and they're obviously building from within as well. They're going to improve from within. That's what I expect. Mikal Bridges is a player that I've always really liked. Obviously, Devin Booker. And then DeAndre Ayton is really interesting simply because over the course of Chris Paul's career, he's made every big man he's played with, he's either gotten them paid or he's gotten them to a new level from playing with him. If you look at Clint Capella, DeAndre Jordan, even Tyson Chandler. And last year, obviously, Steven Adams had played with Russell Westbrook, but I feel like Steven Adams had one of his best seasons playing with Chris Paul. So, and that's not a coincidence. He's done it his entire career. But getting into the actual game, what I might expect, the Suns beat the Mavericks all three times they matched up against each other last year. Last year on opening night, I believe sometime in January, they came into Dallas and smoked us. And then obviously in the bubble as well when they went 8-0. So I hope that the Mavericks can win this game, but if I were to choose a winner, I would actually be choosing the Suns simply because they match up really well with us. For whatever reason, it seems like Devin Booker just smokes us every single time he plays us. And who knows, it might be different this year. It might be different this time around from the standpoint of the Mavericks bringing in new perimeter guys and new defensive-minded players. James Johnson, Josh Richardson. Actually, that's it. But just those two guys brings in more of a defensive mentality that we didn't have beforehand. And that's going to help this team in the long run. But I think on opening night, we may not see the full impact of that right away. but we'll see what happens. I think if this game ends up being close, I feel more confident in Chris Paul being able to close out the game strong than I do with the Mavericks. The Mavericks had their closing out game struggles last year, and it was very well documented. It was all throughout the season. They couldn't close out games, and it was like 13 or 14 games that we should have won that we didn't. And we were only like 2 games back of the 4 seed. So who knows what could have happened if we were able to close out those games. But I'm rambling a little bit. The next thing on my list was talking about the front court rotation, right? So Dwight Powell, whether he will be getting starter minutes long-term for this team or whether we're going to see Maxi Kleber inserted or Willie Cauley-Stein inserted, I think it's more likely that we'll see Maxi Kleber inserted in the starting lineup, but you never know. I think if Willie Cauley-Stein brings the energy and grit that this team needs, then you could see him start for until Kristaps Porzingis comes back. But I don't think Dwight Powell is healthy enough to be able to hold his own defensively, and I don't think he's himself offensively. Just in terms of what he brings to the team, it's not the same amount of impact as it normally would be if he was fully healthy. And I think that matters from the fact that defensively he wasn't that good to begin with. So if he's not bringing to you what we expect from him offensively, then how can you justify putting him out there on the floor guarding guys like Anthony Davis and Giannis and him not giving them buckets back? It just doesn't make sense to me. And it's been a main focus throughout the preseason because he was guarding Giannis for 2 of those preseason games. And then the third preseason game, he guarded Karl Anthony Towns, and he was not good, to put it simply. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm excited for this series. Go Mavs, man. I'll see you all on the other side. Have y'all ever thought about starting your own podcast but thought it would be too complicated? If your answer to that question is yes, let me tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to start a quality podcast. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from any device. And on top of that, Anchor is owned by Spotify, so you have access to a full library of sound effects, background music, transitions, and even full songs that you can add in. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, and it will hook you up with sponsors so you can make money on your podcast. It's literally everything you could ever need to start a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey y'all, I'm officially back. I'm currently recording this on Monday, December 28th. I just watched the Mavericks beat the Clippers, like a historic 50-point lead at halftime. And then obviously Friday, it was the Lakers game on Christmas Day. So I'm just going to talk about those games. And then as for the future of this mini series, I'm going to be doing episodes once a week. So I think it's going to be a little bit too much to ask myself to be recording an episode basically every other day and cover every single game. I'm just going to be covering every single game loosely and then also covering changes I want to see made to the lineup, what I want to see in terms of scheme, who I think should be getting the minutes, and also just previewing the games for the next week. So to address what happened this week, the first week of the season, the last time you heard me was before the Suns game on opening night. We lost that game. We came out flat. Luka, his numbers ended up looking pretty good, but it wasn't his best game, and anybody that has watched him play a bunch knows that that wasn't. And also, they had sloppy turnovers early that really just kept Phoenix in it. And then once it got to the fourth quarter, I was watching the game with my dad, and I was just thinking, once it gets to the fourth quarter, Chris Paul is going to go in there and he's just going to bury us. And that's exactly what happened. It was him and Devin Booker. The Suns are a good team this year, and if you play sloppy and you give them a chance to win, they're going to take it. They have two amazing closers who are known for closing, and that's exactly what happened. They hit the clutch shots. The game was there for the taking, even though we played pretty bad. It was tied at 100, and then Chris Paul made his mid-range shot, and then I felt like it was over from there. It wasn't. I feel like we really let that game slip away. A lot like what we did last year. A lot of times we had so many games slip away like that, where we just were sloppy in the clutch, couldn't get the shots that we wanted, and that loss kind of hurt. I feel like we should have won that game. Yeah, I feel like there's not much else to say about that. I actually expected us to lose a little bit. You heard me mention that we lost to the Suns 3 times last year in the bubble and 2 times during the season, including one on opening night. I just felt pessimistic about that opening game. I felt like we had a really good performance in the preseason overall, and that we may just like come out flat a little bit. And obviously the Suns with their new additions, they were going to come out hungry no matter what, and we just didn't look prepared for that. But moving on to the Christmas Day game with the Lakers, it was painful to watch. We were just dominated on the boards all night, and the most frustrating thing about it is that's not the way we play. Like we're better than that, and we still. I feel like it's more frustrating when you're a good team and you play below what you're supposed to than if you're a bad team and you give it all you got and you're just bad, so you lose. It's just I feel like it's just a completely different feeling as a fan, knowing that you didn't like the team didn't look like they gave it all they had. Like it was just effort. The Lakers just simply wanted it more. If you look at a lot of the rebounds were long rebounds. Like those are the rebounds that Luka was so good at getting last year. Tim Hardaway Jr., all the guards were helping out with the rebounding, and we didn't see that game. I mean, if you make the little mistakes against the Lakers, that's gonna be the result every single time. You have to play a great game to beat the Lakers, and that performance just wasn't gonna cut it. That's really all I have to say about that. Moving on, though, we played the Clippers on December 27th, which was yesterday. Wow. The guys had talked about in their press conferences post-game, after the Lakers game, about coming out with more energy, more force is a term Rick Carlisle used. And we saw that, really. I mean, it was a early tip-off. It was 12:30 Pacific time tip-off for them. And I feel like that played to our advantage because we're already fit to that time zone anyway. And the Clippers, they came out flat. And once they got cold, the Mavericks didn't let them get hot again. Like our defense was good enough to keep them out of rhythm the entire half. Like they got some open shots here and there, but they were so out of rhythm to where they just weren't falling for them. And that's the things we didn't see from our defense last year. I feel like we really showed what this team can be in the future. Just stifling defense enough to keep them off balance, and then offensively we'll go out and do our thing. We put up 77 points at halftime. It was unbelievable. We were up 77-27. Luka had 18 points at halftime, and it felt like he didn't really have to do much. It was an entire team effort. The bench played great. It was really solid overall, just completely. And obviously, the Clippers had a rough game, but and people would allude to that they were without Kawhi, but we're also without Porzingis. So I feel like Porzingis is close to what Paul George will give you, and then Luka and Kawhi would cancel each other out. So I feel like that's not really a real excuse. I feel like we just played a much better game. One thing I wanted to address is the front court rotation. I couldn't think of the right word. The front court rotation. We saw Maxi Kleber coming to the game with 7 minutes left in the first, and then immediately you saw that switch defensively flipped. It was we got off to a good start early, but you didn't feel like Dwight Powell was making the difference defensively that Maxi Kleber was. Like not even for a second. And even Willie Cauley-Stein, when he came in there, he gave really good. Sorry about that. He gave really good minutes off the bench. He had a block, immediately went out into a fast break. Little things like that is what is really encouraging. I actually think Willie Cauley-Stein needs to be starting in these games where we don't have Porzingis. He's a much taller guy than Kleber or Powell. And I think his energy has been questioned in the past. Like, we've never questioned his athleticism, but his energy is what we questioned. And in these first few games, it's been clear to me that his energy has been a huge asset to the team. He's been really doing the dirty work, getting offensive rebounds, the little things that we don't see from the Mavericks when he's not out there on the floor. So I think he needs to be starting. He's not a perfect player. He's far from it. But the things that he can give you defensively and his pick and roll skills rival that of Powell, especially him coming off of that injury. So I think it's a no-brainer. You got to have him start. So the next few games, Mavericks play our first home game on Wednesday. That's going to be against Charlotte. And then we play Miami Friday on another home game. And then we go on the road again to Chicago. I think we can get 2 out of 3, if not all 3 of these games, to be wins. I think Jimmy Butler will be back by now in that Miami game, and that might be a tough game to win. But if we play the way we did against the Clippers, I think we can beat anybody in the league. It's clear to me. It's not a fact that this team can't do it. It's just having the focus and energy each and every night. That's going to be the struggle for this team. A young team that is trying to learn how to win, that's always what holds young teams back. It's not bringing it every night. And I think we have to, if we want to get a high seed and get home court advantage in the playoffs. These are the games early in the season. We've got to get off to a good start and put us in position to get one of those higher seeds in the West. Because if you get behind early, the West is so much of a dogfight. It's going to be hard to leapfrog people unless you're just going on a huge win streak. But I'm just going to address each and every game, the matchups I want to see, the interesting storylines. So for the Charlotte game, I'm expecting us to win that game. Like we need to take care of our business and get it done. This is our first home game. We need to protect our home floor. We saw last year the Mavericks lost our home game against Charlotte, and it was simply because we couldn't get a stop when we needed to. This year, we came back with a better overall defensive team, and I expect us to get the job done. As for matchups, I think I think we need to put Josh Richardson on Terry Rozier because I think he's their best scorer overall. I'm not as apprehensive about Gordon Hayward. I'm not as nervous about him going off on us. I think we can put Dorian Finney-Smith on him, and he can keep him under wraps enough. So the main thing is just going to be keeping the scoring down in their guard rotation, not letting them get hot early, because we saw what they can do yesterday when they played Brooklyn, where Terry Rozier scored 40 points and they were able to get the win against a much better team. So we need to go out early, set the tone defensively. That has to be the focus every single night for us. Because if we set the tone defensively, we can get off to a lead and we can get out into transition, and that's where we're going to be at our best. As good as Luka is as a passer, as a scorer in the half court, he's even better in the fast break. I can't think of a time throughout his career where Luka didn't make the right play in the fast break. He's always been so effective out in transition. So if we can force turnovers, I think that might turn into the bread and butter for this team. That was one of the missing things that we didn't have last year. We weren't able to force turnovers, and it felt like the other team was getting a shot up every possession. So if we can keep our hands active, we can get out in the fast break and get easy buckets, and that'll be huge for us. I really just addressed everything. I think that's really what has to be every single night, and that really transitions to really anybody in the league. I'm going to talk about the Miami game a little bit, and then really that Chicago game, that's just the same things that I said with Charlotte apply to Chicago. That's just a game where we got to get our business done. That's not a good team. We just have to get it done. That's it. Like we need to win that game. With Miami, obviously their shooting is really, really good. They have Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, all those guys, Goran Dragic. But the thing that I'm a little bit worried about is will we be able to break down the zone consistently? They're known for switching it up in terms of their schemes from game to game. And I think if our three-point shot isn't falling, it's going to be hard for us to get into the paint against that type of defense because they're going to be loading up inside. And that's been Luka's main focus to start the year since his jump shot hasn't been falling. So if we're going to win that game, we're going to need Luka to have his jump shots start falling, and we're going to need to match the energy defensively that Miami has. And if we can do that, I feel like we're a better offensive team than them. We just have to be able to get the stops. And I think we can win that game. I think what we saw against the Clippers, that wasn't an anomaly. I think we can become that team. I don't think we'll be like that every night, obviously. But I think the little things that we saw against the Clippers, forcing turnovers, getting out in transition, getting offensive rebounds, hitting open shots on threes, and getting good looks basically every possession, that's going to be what we are when we get to where we want to be later in the season. So it's going to be a fun ride this year, and hopefully we can get on track with our record. Right now we're sitting at 1-2, and we gotta start stacking up the wins. There's no time to waste out in the West. That's never been the case. So that's gonna do it for me, y'all. I'll see y'all next episode. Me and Michael are gonna record one probably tonight. So you'll be seeing this episode just before our main episode where we're gonna cover college football, and I think we're gonna do some more NFL stuff. But Once again, thanks for listening. Subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star review. All that stuff. And peace.